It's getting to the point where drafting a fantasy football quarterback is more difficult than deciding what goes on your plate round one of Thanksgiving dinner. There's so many fantasy viable options out there. Who do you choose? When do you choose them? We're talking quarterbacks right now. What's going on, everybody? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there. Welcome back to the Draft.com studios, and today we're talking quarterbacks, and there's a lot of them, right? I mean, it's almost like playing eeny, meeny, miny, mo on draft day. There's so many options. The biggest debate is, do you take one early or do you take one late? And we'll discuss that today. We're going to go through the top 25 consensus ADP picked quarterbacks as of right now on fantasypros.com. These are not my rankings. This is the current ADP that will be going down. Before we get into it, real quick, after this video, head over to our website. A lot of other great content for you to check out. Plus, our draft guide is still for sale. If you haven't drafted yet, now is the time to get it. Make sure you have it. Get a little prep in before your fantasy football draft. If you buy one before September 4th, you're automatically entered to win this autographed Marlon Mack jersey behind me, along with some headliner swag, so don't miss out on that. A lot of great comments in the past few videos. A lot of people enjoying the draft guide, so go get yours now before it's too late. But now let's talk about a little bit of quarterbacks. Let's break down the top 25 ADP-wise, and let's see who we should take in 2019. All right, is there any surprise who's the number one drafted quarterback right now? No, probably not. It's Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City Chiefs, and as long as he's in this offense with Andy Reid, with the weapons that he's surrounded with Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Sammy Watkins, they have a plethora of running backs, I'm going to say, because it's not just Damian Williams anymore. Darwin Thompson making some noise in camp and looking good. Patrick Mahomes has the ability to put up huge numbers. Do I expect another 50 touchdown season? Not so much, but even Patrick Mahomes, if he goes out there and regresses slightly, to just say 4,800 yards and 44 touchdowns, he's still in the top three. He's still a top quarterback regardless. Love Patrick Mahomes. What I don't love is where you have to take him. I prefer to take quarterbacks a little bit later in my draft, preferably not before round 7 unless one of these top guys falls. Patrick Mahomes is not going to wait that long in most drafts, and for that reason, I won't own a whole lot of Patrick Mahomes. Great talent, just can't draft him that early in fantasy football. Deshaun Watson, Houston Texans up next, and I love Deshaun Watson. He's still being drafted a little bit early for my taking, but really the only thing separating Deshaun Watson from an absolutely enormous fantasy football season, maybe the health of his weapons. I mean, does Kiki Qt come back to full health? Can Will Fuller ever stay healthy? I love the addition of Duke Johnson there. We know about DeAndre Hopkins, and we know that he has the rushing upside. Like I said, he's being drafted a little bit too early still for my liking. However, if he slips in a fantasy football draft, he may be worth reaching a round or so early. So if he's sitting there in the 6th round, it's going to be hard for me to pass on Deshaun Watson. Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay Packers up next, and I mean, it's Aaron Rodgers. Do I need to explain a whole lot? Yes, he's got Devontae Adams, Geronimo Allison, MVS on the outside. He's got Aaron Jones in the backfield, new head coach, Matt LaFleur. Does he bring a high octane passing offense to Green Bay to really unleash Aaron Rodgers? It's entirely possible. We already know he's one of the most consistent producers, and he's not going to turn the ball over a lot. Not going to sit here and sell you on Aaron Rodgers. Still being drafted a little early for my liking, but it's Aaron Rodgers. Love the potential upside. 4th overall right now is Baker Mayfield, Cleveland Browns. And a lot of people can't stand Baker Mayfield, and they're just waiting for this crash and burn in Cleveland to happen. I'm not on that train. I love Baker Mayfield this year. This, I believe, is going to work out in Cleveland. Just because you have Baker Mayfield and Odell Beckham and a lot of other personalities in this locker room doesn't mean it can't work. With all the personalities that are there, I think Baker Mayfield may be one of the only NFL quarterbacks that can handle that locker room. With that swag that he carries himself with, it could actually happen. He has a ton of weapons around him. You got Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, David Njoku, Nick Chubb. This guy could put up some huge numbers. It would not surprise me if it's coming down towards the end of the year that him and Patrick Mahomes are battling it out for this top spot. Love Baker Mayfield, and if he slips to the 6th, he's another one of those guys I may reach for around early, even though I like my quarterbacks round 7 and later. Up next is Matt Ryan, Atlanta Falcons, and we've talked about this offense at length. I mean, he's got 13 games indoors. He's not going to have to worry about weather very often this season. The return of Dirk Cutter as the offensive coordinator. Plenty of weapons for him to throw to with Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, Mohamed Sanu, Devontae Freeman. This offense is going to throw the ball a lot. They do it every single year. They're not going to go out there and just run Devontae Freeman into the ground like a lot of people may think that they will. They're going to air it out early and often in Atlanta. Matt Ryan had a great 2018, and I expect similar numbers here in 2019. Andrew Luck up next, and he's starting to fall down the rankings and ADPs just a little bit. A lot of people worried about this potential injury that he's suffering, and deservedly so. I'm starting to worry about it too. It sounds like they're already starting to prep Jacoby Brissett to be the Week 1 starter. They're holding him out of the Week 3 preseason game because they can't afford to have anything happen to him. They're a little bit worried about Andrew Luck. Now, do I think he misses significant time? No, probably not, but this could be an injury that lingers for a few weeks and really has me pausing for the cause on Andrew Luck. Am I completely avoiding him in drafts? If you saw our most recent mock draft video, I kind of explained it. No, I'm not, because if he falls into that 7th round, I will take Andrew Luck. The only issue with that is that I'm going to be forced to take a second quarterback in the later rounds. But if I can go later and get like a Phillip Rivers or a Kirk Cousins, something like that, to at least start the season with, by the time you get to midseason, if Andrew Luck's 100%, your roster is going to be stacked. I'm not completely avoiding Luck. I'm just worried about the start of the season. Number 7 is Drew Brees, and that's still a little bit high for me. I would have Drew Brees further down this list. I'm not off the bandwagon completely. Obviously, it's not the same Drew Brees that's going to go out there and throw for 5,000 yards and 40-plus touchdowns anymore, but they're still going to throw the ball. And a lot of this is going to be yards after the catch, which he's going to benefit from. Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara are great at that, and that's where he really racks up his yardage. Outside of that, they got Jared Cook and Traquan Smith. Plenty of options to produce big numbers. But do they have to? Do the Saints enter a lot of second half of ball games with a lead where they just kind of pound the rock and rely on the run? Yeah, possibly. It's what they did at times last year. I expect the same this year. They're doing whatever they can to keep Drew Brees healthy because if he goes down, if he gets hurt, the championship window may be closed. Next up, Russell Wilson. I expect him to start falling. Actually, why? His wide receivers are dropping pretty quick. We got DK Metcalf, more than likely going to be limited to start the season. And now David Moore, wide receiver on the outside, he's dealing with an injury, really just leaving Tyler Lockett and Jerron Brown for right now. That's not a whole lot of options there for Russell Wilson. Do they rely more on the run game? Absolutely. I can see a lot more Carson and Penny coming up because of this. Tyler Lockett, he is going to be their number 1 wide receiver to start the season. Is that enough to produce huge numbers for Russell Wilson? Probably not. However, down the stretch, this may be a name that you kind of take a look at. If he's on somebody else's team, maybe make a trade offer a few weeks into the season because down the stretch, Russell Wilson could have some pretty decent years. He does it every single season. He's better in the second half than he is in the first half. Russell Wilson is not just a pass for me, but it's not somebody that I'm targeting on draft day just based off of past performances in previous years. Number 9, Carson Wentz, Philadelphia Eagles. A lot of people want to say that this guy is going to have a huge year, and it's lining up to look like he possibly could. But I think they run the ball a little bit more than a lot of people are expecting in Philadelphia, but he has plenty of weapons at his disposal. Can he stay healthy? That's probably the biggest question with Carson Wentz. But with Deshaun Jackson, Nelson Aguilar, Alshon Jeffrey, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, all those running backs, Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, plenty of options for the Philadelphia Eagles. Their defense, it's improved. If that defense can keep scores low, we may see more running in Philadelphia, less of those big passing games from Carson Wentz. Love the talent, love the upside. For me, though, I would rather wait a couple more rounds and take a chance on somebody a little bit farther down the list because even though they're garbage points win fantasy championships, and Carson Wentz's garbage points may not be there as much as some of the others farther down your draft board. Next up, Cam Newton. People getting worried that they saw him in his walking boot after an ankle injury in this week's preseason game. But it's Cam Newton, and I wasn't on this bandwagon anyway. Now it's just a greater reason for me to avoid him altogether. I don't want anything to do with Cam Newton this year. Not only the shoulder injury, but now a possible lingering foot issue to enter the season. I'm passing on Cam Newton. I was already worried. Now, does this really affect his receivers is the question I'm getting a lot. I think it really affects the Greg Olsons and the DJ Moores, but the Christian McCaffreys and the Curtis Samuels, the guys who make their living underneath on the short to intermediate routes, those guys I still think are okay. Cam Newton's going to be out there. He's going to be playing, but he may not be throwing the deep ball much, and that's really going to benefit those guys playing underneath. Cam Newton, though, as far as fantasy quarterback-wise goes, I'm passing altogether. Number 11 is Jared Goff. I love Jared Goff this year. I think he has the potential to have a huge fantasy season. Think about it. So many people predicting that Todd Gurley sees less of a workload. Well, if he does, maybe the offense as a whole runs the ball a little bit less, and they rely more on the passing game. I mean, Cooper Kupp looks like the bionic man out there. He's improved his speed and agility scores after tearing his ACL just last November. Plus Brandon Cooks, Robert Woods, and a young, athletic tight end with Gerald Everett. This could be a very scary offense once again, a high-powered passing offense with Jared Goff back there. And in the later rounds, this is one of those guys that I would rather wait and take later because the upside is still absolutely huge. 12 is Kyler Murray. He started to fall a few spots after the preseason games, but I'm not hopping off the bandwagon. A lot of people want to go out there and say, see, I told you the Cardinals offense isn't going to be any good. Listen, this is the preseason. Do you think they're going to go out there and show their hand to everybody in a couple preseason games, which mean nothing? I mean, the guy's only played a few series in his NFL career, and we're expecting him to be a Hall of Famer already. The rushing upside alone, if you're on the Lamar Jackson bandwagon, then you should be on the Kyler Murray bandwagon. It's the same type of upside. Is he going to go out there and throw for 4,000 yards and 40 touchdowns? No. But is he going to go out there and throw for around 3,000 yards, but possibly add 700 yards rushing? Yes, that's entirely a possibility. I'm not hopping off the Kyler Murray bandwagon, and I like to see him falling in drafts. It's another one of those guys I'll take as a high upside pick in the double-digit rounds. Big Ben Roethlisberger coming up next, 13th overall, and this one's kind of hard to figure out. I mean, we know they're going to throw the ball a lot in Pittsburgh, but how is it going to be with just one stud wide receiver on the outside with Juju? Now, Dante Moncrief and James Washington and Vance McDonald, they're viable players, but they're not Antonio Brown. They're not that huge upside type of player. If defenses can't limit Juju at all, Ben is going to struggle a little bit, and that's why he's fallen down this list a little bit. He's always been one of those quarterbacks that's been underrated on draft day just because of the amount of volume that they throw in Pittsburgh, but I'm not exactly on the Big Ben bandwagon this year. There's other names with higher upside, a little bit younger even possibly. This Pittsburgh offense is going to look a little bit different, and I'm not hopping all over Ben Roethlisberger just because he had a great year last year. No Antonio Brown, no Le'Veon Bell. Things are going to be different in Pittsburgh. I'll let that be somebody else's problem. I'm not dealing with it in 2019. Next up, number 14 is Tom Brady, and I think he's being underrated here just a little bit. Now, I know the pass-catching weapons for the Patriots are not there this season. Not like they have been in the past anyway. But this is Tom Brady, and now they're kind of entering it as an underdog. They're being looked down upon a little bit because of their lack of offensive weapons. I'm not putting it back past Tom Brady and Bill Belichick to go out there and still find a way to put up big numbers. This is Tom Brady. He does it every single year. Now, are you going to spend an early round pick on him? Nope, you're absolutely not. And depending on your league size, you may end up having to take a second quarterback just as an insurance policy. If you're in a smaller league, though, you don't have to worry about it. There's more than enough people out there to stream, if needed, the upside of Tom Brady in a prove-it type year to prove the public that they're wrong about what the Patriots look like on paper. I'm not doubting Tom Brady. He's proved us wrong way too many times. 15 is Lamar Jackson, Baltimore Ravens, and really, in my opinion, similar to Kyler Murray, you're buying Lamar Jackson for the rushing upside. I'm a little bit worried that they ask him to rush a little bit less this year. That's kind of maybe why they brought in Mark Ingram. They want to keep this kid healthy. They want to develop him in the passing game. They've given him weapons on the outside with Boykin and Brown. We know he's got the multiple tight ends there to throw the ball to. They're giving him weapons. They're surrounding him with weapons, and they're putting a few running backs behind him with Ingram and with Justice Hill. Lamar Jackson worries me slightly. You're banking on his rushing upside to start the season. If they limit it, you're going to be in trouble. Keep that in mind. Keep an eye on it, because if he starts out not running the ball the first few weeks, that's when it's time to jump ship and find yourself another quarterback. 16 is Jameis Winston, and we've talked about this one at length also. They're going to throw the ball a lot in Tampa Bay. It's a below-average defense. It's a below-average offensive line. It's a below-average running back group. They're not going to be able to run the ball, and they're going to have to throw it a lot. The problem with Jameis is turnovers. It's interceptions. If your league has negative points for interceptions, that's going to hurt at times. However, we talked about garbage points a little bit earlier. I can see Jameis Winston having to throw the ball all four quarters for a lot of games this season. They're in a division that's going to require a lot of shootouts. Other teams that can put up points. Tampa Bay, they're not going to be able to stop those teams. They're going to have to throw it all 4 quarters. Jameis Winston could be somebody with a huge ceiling in a Bruce Arians offense. I'm not totally crossing Jameis Winston off my draft board, but what I am doing is I'm paying attention to the health of Mike Evans. If Mike Evans is limited to start the year, I'm going to start fading Jameis Winston. If this quad injury is something that's just minor and he's good to go by week 1, Jameis Winston has huge fantasy football upside here this season. Phillip Rivers, Los Angeles Chargers, and you can't get much more consistent than Phillip Rivers. The guy's going to give you right around 4,000 yards and 30-plus touchdowns. It happens every single year. Plus, if Melvin Gordon does not report, which it sounds like he's not going to by the start of the season, they're going to throw the ball more. Hunter Henry, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, if he can be 100% healthy, they're going to throw the ball a lot with the Chargers, and he's provided a great offense through the air for a very long time for the Chargers. Phillip Rivers is about as safe a fantasy quarterback as you can get. If you're worried, if you want a second quarterback, he's definitely somebody you can get late in the double-digit rounds to kind of give your team some insurance. If you don't land one of those top guys, if you don't have that warm fuzzy with your first pick, then you go Phillip Rivers. Otherwise, you may just punt the position altogether, end up with Phillip Rivers late in your drafts, and you're still sitting pretty in your fantasy football team. 18's Dak Prescott, and people are starting to worry about Dak Prescott too. I like Dak Prescott still this year. I mean, with no Ezekiel Elliott, a lot of people are like, well, he can't do it without Zeke. He can. He needs that offensive line healthy, and as of right now, it seems to be about as healthy as it's been in a long time. All this means, similar to what we just talked about with Rivers, with no Zeke there, they're going to have to throw the ball more. Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, Tony Pollard out of the backfield could become a weapon for this offense. They picked up Randall Cobb. If he can stay healthy in the slot, Dak Prescott will be looked at to throw the ball a lot more. He's really protected the ball in the past, and he has that slight rushing upside with 6 rushing touchdowns 3 straight years. I don't hate Dak Prescott at all. If anything, with Zeke being out, it could slightly bump up his ceiling. Dak Prescott could be throwing the ball and rushing the ball more himself than he has in the entire previous parts of his career. I'm not crossing Dak Prescott off my draft board yet. Number 19 is Kirk Cousins, Minnesota Vikings. A lot of people moving them down their draft boards also, but another one of those guys is late in drafts that you can get that has that solid floor and a decent ceiling. With Thielen, with Diggs, a pass-catching running back in Dalvin Cook, a young tight end with Irv Smith Jr. and Kyle Rudolph. There's possibilities here for Kirk Cousins. His biggest issue last season was consistency. He would go out and score you 40 fantasy points and come out the next week and score you 8. That's the biggest problem with Kirk Cousins. And unfortunately, I think that continues this season, and they focus more on running the football. Kirk Cousins could be somewhat inconsistent, but he provides you a high ceiling if you're looking for one of those boomer bust plays late in your draft. Number 20 is Mitch Trubisky, Chicago Bears, and I think Mitch takes a pretty big step forward this season. Second year with Allen Robinson, with Anthony Miller, Taylor Gabriel, Tariq Cohen, David Montgomery out of the backfield. He's got plenty of options, and I really believe in the Matt Nagy style of offense. Mitch Trubisky grows another year older this year and really gains that experience and does something with it here in 2019. Mitch Trubisky is being grossly underrated, in my opinion, and could definitely outperform his ADP. After that, you got Jimmy Garoppolo, who, didn't look great in preseason, but you know what? That's the first NFL action he's seen in a long time. I'm not hopping off the Garoppolo bandwagon. Similar to Mitch Trubisky, I believe in the offense of Kyle Shanahan. They've surrounded Jimmy G with a lot of young weapons. Deebo Samuel, Jalen Hurd. We already know about Dante Pettis, George Kittle. There's a lot of options there for Jimmy G. And if he can get back to full health and get that comfortable feeling with his knee, Jimmy G could put up some huge numbers. I mean, don't forget, last year, Nick Mullins, CJ Beathard, they were startable fantasy quarterbacks at one point because of the Shanahan offense. Give Jimmy G some time, he could put up some big numbers. After that, you got Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills. And Josh Allen is somebody who surprised a lot of people end of season, but it was due to his rushing upside. Does he do that still this year? Well, they brought in a few more weapons for him. We already know about the tax man, Bob Foster. We know about Zay Jones, but now they brought in Cole Beasley, John Brown, who looks great in camp, Dawson Knox, a rookie tight end that has some potential upside. And then you also have that rushing upside of Josh Allen, which I know they want to curtail a little bit. However, they're not going to just all of a sudden stop it. Can we expect 100-yard rushing games from Josh Allen every week? No, we can't, but he was one of the best fantasy quarterbacks down the stretch. And now you've given him deep ball threats with one of the quarterbacks that has maybe one of the strongest arms in the NFL. Josh Allen is a sleeper quarterback that I love in the late rounds. 23 is Derek Carr, Oakland Raiders, and another one of these guys who I think's being underrated. I mean, they brought in Tyrell Williams and Antonio Brown. They drafted Josh Jacobs, and Derek Carr did not have a horrible 2018. Still threw for over 4,000 yards. Can he take a step forward and get more touchdowns this season is what really would catapult him up this list. They're giving him all the potential possibilities that he needs. All the weapons that he needs on the outside are going to be there. They're going to have to throw the ball a lot. I'm still not 100% sold that Josh Jacobs is a workhorse running back. And if not, Derek Carr sees more pass attempts throughout the season. I think he's another one of these guys who's very, very underrated right here at draft time. Matthew Stafford, hopefully he's come back to full health here in 2019. Didn't get to see 100% Matthew Stafford last year, and now he gets back Marvin Jones, the newly drafted TJ Hawkinson, and we already know about Kenny Galladay on the outside. Matthew Stafford could have a bounce-back style season, but is it the 5,000-yard Matthew Stafford that we've seen in the past? Probably not. I do think he outperforms this ADP, but I don't think he's one of the elite options that we were used to seeing in the past. 25, Sam Darnold, New York Jets, and I think he takes a small step forward again this year. They brought in Jamison Crowder. He gets Quincy Enunwa back, and he seems to be clicking with Robbie Anderson here in camp. He has that potential to have a bounce-back style year, a better sophomore year than what we saw from him in his rookie season. Don't forget, he was just a rookie last year. The addition of Le'Veon Bell is going to pull more defenders into the box and force more attention on him. He may see more pressure early. Opposing defenses may force them to beat them with the throw and not with Le'Veon Bell. Can Sam Darnold handle that pressure? It's kind of why he's fallen down draft boards, but I do think he has that potential to outperform his ADP. Do I want him to be my quarterback one to enter the season, though? Absolutely not. All right, so that was the consensus top 25 quarterbacks for right now. Who do you want on your team? Who are you comfortable drafting as your number one quarterback? If you don't get one of the top elite guys, do you then go for the 2 quarterback strategy and kind of give yourself a little bit of insurance? It's one of the most interactive channels on YouTube, and we want to make sure you guys are involved. Put a comment down in the comment section down below, and make sure you're hitting that like button if I give you any good information to help you out. Drafts are right around the corner. The season's right around the corner. Go get your draft guide if you haven't yet. It is definitely going to be something, a tool for you on draft day to help you make the right decisions. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there. Have a great rest of your day. Talk to you later.